So let's talk about the honest, real cost of living here in Chandler, Arizona. We're going to talk about utilities, taxes, transportation, groceries, even things like gym memberships, childcare, and of course, homes. And these are numbers from what current residents in Chandler have shared. I'm Courtney Strelzik. I'm a local Phoenix East Valley real estate agent. And on this channel, it's really my goal to be a guide in figuring out where you should live. And cost of living is really important when deciding where you should move to. So the first thing we're going to talk about are utilities. Now, in the city of Chandler, your water, sewer, and trash are actually bundled together and you pay this through the city. The average was $73.83. Now, water could be the thing that could increase that monthly payment. If you have a pool and, a big lawn that you have to water, this could definitely change that number. But the utility that really catches people off guard that aren't originally from Arizona or Chandler is electricity. And we have two big electric companies, SRP and APS. And before we get into the numbers, something you have to understand is there's multiple factors that will impact your electric bill. Of course, how much square footage do you have? Do you keep your thermostat at 68? That's going to be pretty expensive in the summer. Do you have a pool? Do you have pretty good windows? Is your AC unit running effectively? Have you serviced it? Now, in the survey, we did find in the summer months, people's electric bill was anywhere from $250 to $600. And then in the winter months, it was anywhere from $85 to $120 a month. So yes, we have a lot of variance in our electric bill between the summer and winter. And what some people do, there's actually a program called budget billing. And what you can do is have the electric company basically even out or average your electric bill, and then you pay the same amount each month. Now, this is usually a little bit more expensive, but if you want to have a consistent bill, this is definitely a good option. And while we're talking about electric, I do want to bring up a note about solar. Now, I know a lot of solar salesmen will say you will save so much money by having solar, but the thing is really when we look at bills, and if you finance a solar or have a lease on solar, like a lot of time your monthly payment, it depends how many panels and everything you have, but that's usually a couple $100. And more often than not, we do not see that payment offset the savings in your electric bill. Now, there used to be some green programs or rebate programs, but unfortunately, a lot of those are not available anymore. Now, if you really just want to be green, absolutely see the value in that. But if your goal is to save money on your monthly bills, that probably isn't going to happen. Now, the second thing we're going to talk about are taxes. This is usually something people are pleasantly surprised about if they're moving from out of state. So for income tax, we actually have a flat rate. It's 2.5%. And as far as sales tax, so you have state, county, and then city, all those together is about 7.8%. And this is actually slightly lower than most of the other surrounding cities. For the most part in Phoenix Metro, you're finding about 8%. Now, the third thing we're going to talk about is transportation. And this is the thing. You kind of need a car in Chandler. Now, we do have some public transportation. I would say it's slightly better than Gilbert, but not by much. There are some buses, and then there's this program called Chandler Flex where you can it's basically like an Uber through the city. It's pretty affordable, but the hours are limited to weekdays. It's from 5:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. But for most people, the big expense is, the cost of owning a car. Now, for gas here, we're at $3.86, which is slightly above the national average. The national average was $3.21. Car insurance here, there were some surveys with that. Now, as far as minimal coverage, people are finding it was about $63 a month. And then if you had full coverage per the survey, it was $165 a month. Now, I will say for both myself and a lot of my clients, if you bundle your car insurance with your home insurance, often you're finding even with full coverage and window or glass, you're finding for the most part, it's going to be under $100 a month. And if you're paying more than that, it may be worth going and shopping around. And just as another side note, we do have a lot of rideshare options. So, really any time of the day, you can find a Lyft or an Uber and it'll be at your home or wherever you are within 5 to 10 minutes. Now, the next expense, groceries. So the average for this for a family of four for actual groceries was $800 a month. And this was for people that mostly cooked at home. Now, people that had regular restaurant outings, the budget did increase to about $1,400 a month. Now, I would say if you're eating out more than maybe 1 to 2 times a week, you're probably spending more than $1,400 a month, but that really can just vary depending on where you're shopping. Another thing too is that compared to national averages, this was about 2% higher, so it is a little bit more expensive. Now, for some reason, I have a lot of people ask me this question, but how much were gym memberships here? Now, we do have a couple budget gyms. Vasa and EOS are two budget gyms in Chandler, and those are going to be anywhere from like $10 to $15 a month. And then if you're looking for more like a CrossFit or a functional fitness gym, a lot of these are going to be like $150 to $175 a month. And then also if you're looking for like spin or Pilates or yoga, it's going to be pretty comparable to these prices. However, what I like to do is something called ClassPass. If you don't know what that is, you should definitely look into it. But that usually is the best way to go to like yoga and Pilates classes. The cheapest way. Now, the other one is childcare. We did see a lot of variance with this, but on care.com, when they were talking about like in-home care, having a nanny come to your house, the average was $20 an hour, or it came out to, for a month, the average rate was $2,625. For daycare, we saw that for infants, anyone under a year, it was about $400. 1 to 2 years old, toddlers, it was about $375. And then for preschool above 2, it was about $350. I did have a couple people share with me that for part-time, they were able to find rates that were about $1,000 a month. And then there was a couple families that said they were even able to find full-time rates for about $1,200 a month. But they did have multiple kids, so they received some discounts for this. Overall, though, the common theme I find among a lot of my friends and clients here is if you have more than one child, often less expensive to have someone come to your home. So it's something to think about, but I would recommend also doing your own research. There's actually some great Facebook groups out there. One in particular is called East Valley Moms, and they'll share a lot of information if you go on that group and ask them questions. Now, as far as homes, so your monthly payment is going to vary significantly depending on your down payment, your credit score, all of those things. However, the median sales price most recently at the time of publishing this was $530,000. Now, for a townhome, we do have a lot of townhomes and condos here. You're really looking, I would say, starting in the 200s, and I have seen some go all the way up to like $600,000. For single family homes, for 55 plus communities, you actually can find some closer to, low 300,000s. But for the most part, you really are looking at the higher 300s. And then, last month we had, a couple multi-million-dollar homes sell too. So Chandler really has a lot of variety of homes. So it really just depends what part of Chandler you're looking into and also what type of home. Now, as far as overall your monthly expenses, what can you expect living in Chandler? So salary.com actually took a lot of surveys and data, and they found that it was about $6,000 a month for a family of 4. And this was about 9% higher than the national average. However, something you have to consider is we are a city, so we're definitely going to be more expensive than, a small town in Arkansas. But to compare it to other major cities that, a lot of places we see people moving from, for example, San Diego, it's about $8,000 a month for a family of 4. Chicago was about $6,000, which is pretty comparable to here. Denver was about $6,700, so a little bit more expensive. And then Seattle was almost $8,000. So when you really think about it from different major cities or comparing it to different major cities, I would say we do fairly well. The biggest expense is really homes. But if you're curious what your monthly payment for a home would look like here, or maybe you're like, Chandler might be a little expensive, what other areas would be more suitable for my desired monthly budget? I do have a link below in the description where you can schedule a discovery call and we can break this down a little bit further. Thank you so much for your time and have a fantastic day.